No one said this week was going to be easy. Welcome back to the Sam JW channel, and let's have a conversation about what we saw last night. Oxford United 0, Sheffield United 3 at Bramall Lane. Chris Wilder's side getting 3 points over his former club. And another loss in what's being a very, very tricky 3-game week. Let's have a conversation. So yeah, it finishes Oxford United 0, Sheffield United 3 at Bramall Lane. Look, first off, we'll start by saying they are such a good side, Sheffield United. I mean, let's first have a look at the lineups, because I think this really kind of paints a picture of just how good a side they have got. We started with a kind of 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1-esque setup. Of course, no Elliot Moore, so it was Jamie Cummings starting in goal, Hid Turtlevest and Greg Lee as the fullbacks, Kieran Brown and Sam Long in the centre of that back four. Then Will Vaulks alongside Cameron Brannigan with Ruben Rodriguez slightly more advanced. Dane Scarlett starts up top with Shemi Poiheta and Tyler Goodrum. And then their side. Michael Cooper is a keeper I believe will be starting for, the Three Lions in a couple of years. I think he will be an England #1 at some point in his career. I think he's just a sensational goalkeeper. Obviously, I think he's already capped under 21 level. He's just sensational. Of course, the tree, Harry Souter, that 6'7" massive bugger. It's always going to be difficult on set pieces, and it turned out to be, obviously, as we'll talk about in a minute. And when you've got, a man attacking the ball who's that size and has got, who is able to jump to like 7 foot tall, it's ridiculous. And he's also a great little defender. Same can be said with McCallum, Sariki and Robinson in the rest of that back line. Peck and D'Souza, when I've watched previous Sheffield United games, Pecker's always kind of gone under the radar, but it's when you're watching the game, when you're focusing, I should say, on one of the games instead of having the previous games in the background, that you really see just how much he does for Sheffield United. In midfield, he's absolutely everywhere, and he's involved in the first goal. And then that kind of more attacking three, each one of these players, I believe, should be playing in the Premier League next season. If not for Sheffield United, then a side more established in the league, I will say. Jason Raksaki is a player that I believe will be playing for Crystal Palace next season. The lad's ridiculous. His movement is sensational. That instinct that he's always on the lookout. He's always kind of looking over his shoulder, waiting for that pass to come to him. And then to turn and make the runs. He's just a sensational player. Harmer is a joke. This is a lad that quite easily could be in a top 5 European league. He's obviously, again, like I said with Raksaki, the fact he's playing at championship level is just ridiculous. And same we said with Callum O'Hare. This is a lad that I thought a really good move for him would have been to go to a West Ham, go to a Premier League side, but he's gone to Sheffield United. And yeah, I mean, I think if you look at those three players, I think that's at least £45 million worth of talent in Harmer, O'Hare, and Raksaki. And then of course you've got Tyrese Campbell up top. He's a prolific, very, very effective goal scorer at this level. So let's have a look at the first half, shall we? We actually started relatively well. First shot here from Tyler Goodrum. It's really good work by Shemi Poiheta on the left-hand side. Does combine well with Greg Lee. He sends Poiheta along, gives Sariki a bit of a problem. Ball is swung in. No man there to get it, but it falls to Tyler Goodrum, who blasts it over the bar. I have to say, it was a good kind of start, especially given kind of the opening moments of that game. Ball given away by Will Vaulks in the midfield area in the opening 2 minutes. They come forward and almost open the scoring very early on through Tyrese Campbell. But we rebounded pretty well. And yeah, it was a decent opportunity for Tyler Goodrum. But then it all turned to pot. Didn't take long at all. It's this one here. So long throw. Something we've come to use quite regularly. One ends up being our undoing. Flung to the air. I'm not sure which Sheffield United player it is that launched the ball into the area, but there he is. The big tree, Harry Souttar knocks it down. And then it's a mixture of fantastic attacking movement from Sheffield United's players and also really poor tracking from Oxford United. It's flicked on and Campbell has it out on the wide right of our box, fizzed it back across, and you've got both Peck and the goal scorer Callum O'Hare looking to tap it home past Jamie Cumming. It's like I say, it's one of those goals that we've scored from time to time. You know, is the result any different on this set piece if we've got Elliot Moore? Probably not, because not just the ever so slight height advantage that Souttar's got, but the fact that there is movement from the Sheffield United players, and you know, no picking up from the Oxford men, means that, you know, it makes it almost certainty the ball's going to end up in the back of the net. Then kind of that's when Sheffield United click. There's a little bit more attempts at chance creation from Oxford, but they don't end up in an awful lot. And then just piling on the pressure, Sheffield United, and they get the goal inside half an hour to make it 2-0. I've said a couple of times this season, what is Kieran Brown doing? I really thought that, because he's trying to make one of those marauding midfield runs forward like he does try to do sometimes, and I will be honest, most of the time it doesn't end well for us. He gives away the ball, and it's picked up by Callum O'Hare, who sends Tyrese Campbell through. He's got the beating of Sam Long. Jamie comes out. I think James come out a little bit too early, because he then falls over and Tyrese Campbell is literally able to just basically pass it into the back of the net. He could have walked it in by that point, because Jamie Campbell was on the floor and no Oxford player was really making an attempt to even, you know, attempt to make that last minute block. It's one of those chances that Oxford have created a couple of times this season and have never been able to put home. Or almost never, you know. It's one of those, like I say, we've seen those chances so often. We saw it, of course, from Mark Harris against Middlesbrough on Saturday. We create a fair number of those, sending a man forward against the goalkeeper, and they don't put the ball in the back of the net. And like I say, that just shows the sheer difference between the sides in the bottom, we'll say bottom 6 at this point of this championship, and the top 6. I mean, you could even split it halfway. You know, some of the finishing we've seen from the sides in that top half have been ridiculous, and a lot of the lower end sides, of course, have been, you know, not able to finish their dinner a lot of the time. Obviously, this first half was a pasting. No doubt about it. Obviously, Chris Wilder's side dominating the ball, creating the better opportunities, and crucially, not spoiling those opportunities, which is something that, if you go back through a lot of my previous videos, Oxford have done quite a lot this season. So yeah, you know, obviously, you know, if you look at the XG on the 2 goals, a 0.83 and a 0.87, both 0.99 on target, and with certain goals, it would have been extraordinary if either was missed, to be honest with you. But there was some really big chances. This one here from Gus Harmer, it's worked really well out on the left hand side, and it's semi-cleared by an Oxford man, but not far enough, and Harmer fires it right into the hands of Jamie Cumming, and all Cumming can do is palm it away. I thought this was going to be an absolute pasting, to be honest. I thought we were looking at another 5 or 6 goals conceded. But I think it's fair to say that after Sheffield United get their third, they kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit. Obviously, Wilder making a lot of changes to kind of keep men fresh for the weekend, which you can obviously understand, given, you know, this result takes them top, and they will very much be wanting to cement that, at least in the top 2 of the division. You know, this is a side that, no doubt, you know, obviously they've had the Premier League money, first year of the parachute payments. They will be wanting to get back into the top flight as soon as humanly possible. Whereas with us, obviously, you know, our aim is just to stay in the Championship. No changes were made at half-time, and it didn't take long for Sheffield United to get that third goal. This is another example of superb attacking movement and line-splitting passes from Sheffield United and poor defensive work from Oxford. So Sheffield United get into this advanced position, couple of passes being interchanged between Robinson, who was obviously very high at the pitch, McCallum, and then it comes back to Gus Harmer, who plays a very simple ball, so much space given to him, and Kieran Brown and Sam Long are caught like statues, and Jezran Raksaki, who had a really, really good chance earlier in the game. I believe it's this one here, where he fires it just wide. He doesn't miss this one to Jezran Raksaki, and yes, puts Sheffield United 3-0 up. Look, like I say, Sam Long and Kieran Brown caught like statues. Cameron Brannigan not following his man. He kind of, as Robinson drives off to the left hand side, doesn't pick up on Gus Harmer. Will Vaulks is slow to react. It's poor from an Oxford United point of view, and then it's a clinical, brilliant finish from Jezran Raksaki. Again, we did have a couple of chances. I think it's this one from Matt Phillips, who came on a little bit after Raksaki's goal. Ball comes out to him, and I think there's not a lot of options going for him. So Matt Phillips decides, why not give it a chance? It goes for goal, and I think it was probably going over the bar, but Michael Cooper decides to make doubly sure and make the save. Look, this was, like I say, it was definitely a case of, I think, Sheffield United, after they got that third goal, they took their foot off the gas, made a couple of changes, which allowed us to kind of grow back into the game a little bit. I think the one or two of the subs made an okay impact, but again, we'll talk about them in a minute. It did seem, I think in about 90th minute, I think there were 4 minutes of added time, it seemed like kind of the Sheffield United players decided, let's maybe try and get that fourth. I believe it was the 90th minute. It's a brilliant block on the line from Hider Terraves after a fabulous save from Jamie Cumming. It was interesting that the Oxford players were trying to make these last-ditch challenges, these last-ditch blocks when we're 3-0 down, and they weren't trying to do it when we were, at 0-0, 1-0 down, 2-0 down. Maybe that's the 3 games in 6 days. Not entirely sure, but it's it's something that I would expect to see every game from these players. And I was disappointed that like I say, it looks like they started doing it after we were 3-0 down. Look, no complaints whatsoever about this game. Obviously, like I said, Sheffield United much the better side than we are. As you can see, just all 5 substitutions being made by both managers, but Wilder particularly using all of his changes to rest some quite crucial players in his squad. I'm surprised that Callum O'Hare didn't get brought off. I wonder if the idea from Wilder's given only a little bit of time at the weekend. Of course, we're also forgetting this is a Sheffield United side without Ollie Arblaster, which might have made their midfield dominance even worse. So let's go through the players, shall we? Jamie Cumming, so I think he should do better on Saturday with the 5th and 6th goals. Not an awful lot he can do. He can't do much about the first, because it's just the sheer number of bodies of Sheffield United that are kind of around his goal mouth. Second one, like I said, I think he could have delayed going to the ground. It's a bit similar to the Coventry goal, where he kind of makes the first move and then decides that's when he's going to dive, and he just gives the opposition man a perfect chance to go around his left hand side and pass it into back of net. this back four. Right. Like I said, so obviously no Elliot Moore. He will be back for the Millwall game. We often say that without Elliot Moore, we do lack for a defensive presence. But I think really with Elliot Moore, we would have seen the same results, because what we're finding so often in this championship is that teams are exploiting our lack of pace in that back line. Obviously, Greg and Hideo Terravest and Peter Chioso, as fullbacks, they have a bit, they're a bit quicker off the mark than the centre backs. But it is a very recurring theme that oppositions have managed to find a very simple ball through the lines and beat Sam Long, Kieran Brown or Elliot Moore for pace. The only man they've not been able to really beat for pace is Ben Nelson, and he's currently out for 4 months. What we do about it, I'm not entirely sure, because, the only other defender we've got at our disposal is Jordan Thornley, who, there are a lot of conversations I've had about John Thornley. Obviously he was pretty rubbish last season in League One, but the season before with Blackpool, he, a lot of Blackpool fans, can't speak today, thought he was their best defender. But even then, Thornley's not exactly the quickest of centre backs. So it's a really tricky one, because it's one of those areas that we keep seeing getting exploited, but we haven't really got anything we can use to nullify it. The only real kind of workaround I could see is the ridiculous thing of bringing Greg Lee and one of the other centre backs, whether it be Chioso or Hideo Terravest, central. But then what you're doing is then limiting your options in the wide spaces. That's the only way you could get round, the lack of pace in the central defensive areas. And the reality is, even that would be a plaster over an axe wound, to be honest. Attackers in the Championship are a lot quicker than they were in League One, and that's something we're constantly finding out recently. As for Hideo Terravest and Greg Lee, I thought Hideo Terravest was better in the second half, whereas Greg Lee struggled more in the second half. I thought Greg Lee was better in the first. That link up with Shemi Poheta is quite promising, but yeah, getting caught out quite a lot by a hair, by Raksaki, by Peck. He was getting given the run around a bit was Greg Lee, and same can be said for Hideo Terravest in that first half. We'll talk about the three midfielders in Volks, Brannigan and Rodriguez. So Will Volks, obviously, I think it's fair to say there would have been a lot more eyes on him. Of course, former Sheffield Wednesday man, going to play at Bramall Lane. I'm sure there was quite a lot of abuse towards Will Volks on last night. There were moments I thought he looked pretty good. He managed to make a couple of big interceptions. That back pass, I think he makes it about the 30th minute, was very reminiscent of the one that he gave away against Coventry. It gave us all kind of flashbacks. Other than the getting dispossessed in the second minute, I thought he was fine. I would personally be one for advocating, especially against Millwall, maybe try it out, have McEachran and Volks as the 2 6s, Brannigan just ahead, and then maybe what we have to do then is play with Goodrum on the left hand side to come in and essentially link the play between those three midfield men and the striker. Because obviously, we've seen what Tyler can do as a 10. He really looked okay as when he came inside to Tyler Goodrum. He's got a booking in this game, one away from a suspension. He actually, in the first half, I thought he was actually pretty decent. He did it was a bit of an odd decision. Essentially, ball's been cleared by McCallum down the line. He's given away a throw in, and Tyler just kept going and clattered into him right in front of the linesman. Don't know what Tyler was thinking there. I think maybe just getting a little bit frustrated by the fact we couldn't get hold of the ball at any point really in this game. Rodriguez first half showed glimpses of that, that Portuguese brilliance that we know Ruben can bring, but faded in the second half. Bit similar with Shemi Poiheta. First half looked dynamite, always looking to make those crosses into the area. Didn't look as good when he was on the right hand side, but it looked good, and then very much faded in that second half. Brannigan, Cam, he ran his socks off, as Cam will always do, but I did think that there was just something maybe lacking from Cam's performance. Maybe it's a case of he is obviously getting back to full fitness, so I'll give him a little bit of slack there, I think. Dane Scarlett in the graveyard shift, let's be honest. Couple of good bits of movement. I think it was we was like on Robinson, kind of holding him off, tried to turn his man, but he just lost control of the ball. I'm not going to hold it against Dane Scarlett, in the graveyard shift. Should continue as our striker, I think. And then, obviously, very oddly, Des used all 5 of his substitutes. Matt Phillips, we talked about, came on, had that shot. He looks very, very useful, does Matt Phillips. I thought he was going to be a kind of, looking to come on in the 80th minute kind of player more regularly. But he came on against Sheffield United and looked okay. He looked fine. Idris El Mazouni came on, and I thought there was a notable shift in our midfield when El Mazouni came on. Very much going after the ball. Obviously, we know his technical ability is sublime. Very much improved with Idris El Mazouni on the pitch, I think. McEachran came on for about 20 minutes, didn't do an awful lot. Mark Harris in the graveyard shift, but didn't. There was 1 or 2 okay bits of movement from Mark Harris, but he just couldn't make the impact that Mark Harris. You can see he's begging for that goal, but he's just not coming so far. And then Owen Dale came on and actually looked pretty okay. Owen Dale, we haven't seen this from that often, that he's played on the left hand side. He's looked to properly use his pace and get in behind, and it's been very refreshing, because obviously we're going to need Owen Dale in that vein of form. Looking at the table, we're 18th. Thankfully, results continue to go our way. Obviously, massive game against Millwall. If we can get a point, it's probably a good result for us. And then obviously we've got some big games coming up with, I think isn't it Plymouth, then it's QPR, then of course we've got Sheffield Wednesday in there somewhere, then Leeds after that, and Cardiff and Plymouth to end the year. A lot of big games coming, a lot of, I'll say it, relegation 6 pointers really. Obviously, slight concern is Portsmouth are currently 2 games behind. They've had the last 2 games postponed. Look, we need to make sure we're well clear, and some results against Plymouth, against Cardiff, against QPR could go a very long way to pushing us around here and kind of giving us a bit of a cushion to that relegation zone and the fight going on in there, because sure as hell we do not want to be involved in that relegation scrap. But let me know your thoughts on Oxford's convincing 3-0 loss to Sheffield United at Bramall Lane last night. And yeah, I'll see you after the Millwall game, where I'm hoping we've managed to get at least a point. I'll see you then.